Hey guys, it's Greg. As you can see, a little bit of an unusual setup here. I honestly just didn't want to set up my computer and camera and all that stuff right now, so I'm recording on my phone. I hope that it's okay. So as you probably saw from the title, this is going to be a story of the past maybe 5, 6 years or so, showing how I got to where I am today. Going to share a lot of experiences about university because, well, that's pretty much where I was for the last 5 years. And yeah, I guess let's get into it. So basically, starting at the end of high school, basically, not going to share all of my grades and all of that stuff, but they were not quite good enough to get into stuff like MIT and the very, very top. They weren't quite good enough to get into Waterloo's computer science program, but they were good enough to get into Waterloo's mathematics program. And since I do have two older brothers that actually one of them had already graduated Waterloo, and the other one was like basically almost done graduating Waterloo, both in different co-op programs. It worked very well for them, and it seemed like it was a good option for me. So I took Waterloo's mathematics co-op program. And basically, what that is, well, you get a normal mathematics degree. I'll talk about majors and choosing your courses and that type of thing in a bit. But you do a normal mathematics degree, and you also do, I think it's six, I always forget if it's 5 or 6, but I'm pretty sure it's six different 4-month co-op terms at Waterloo. So basically, you would most likely start with, say, 4 months of school in the fall term, 4 months of school in the winter term. That way, you'd be done first year courses. And then in the summer, you could do those 4 months at an internship or as an internship or a co-op. It's really used interchangeably. A co-op or internship at one of the companies that either they have in their system and that they have strong relations with, or even just you could find your own job, and as long as you link it up properly, then you're good to go. So basically, first year, I did conventional mathematics courses. It would have been in Calculus 1, so that's differential calculus, a proofs-like course, and just kind of understanding mathematics as a whole. And then there would have been Computer Science 1. I'm just doing this from memory, so eventually I'll hit a point where I don't quite remember and where it doesn't really matter. But would have been Computer Science 1 as well. And they use this really funny language called racket. You may have heard other people talk about it. It's purposely just kind of a not useful language for the real world, very weird and different, so as to kind of set everyone on the same foot. And that's very important because otherwise there would have been some godly programmers that just kind of jump in and are already phenomenal at this stuff. And there would have been others that, they just kind of joined this and they don't really know what they're doing and they're figuring it out. But everyone should be able to pass if you put in enough effort. So they kind of, for that computer science course, they pick a weird language that, there's not going to be any masters in it already. People will be masters in Java and C++ and Python and yada yada, but probably no masters in Racket, unless you studied for it on purpose. But anyways, so Computer Science 1, a proofs and theory course, and the differential calculus were the 3 math courses, and then you could choose 2 other ones. I think I did political science. Not sure why. You can gladly judge me for that if you want to. It was a bit of an error. And then some speech course, which is they have some mandatory speech communication requirements courses as well. So I did that, and then second term would have been Calculus 2, Linear Algebra 1. So at that point, after you've done, actually I'll just talk about that in a second, but Linear Algebra 1, Calculus 2, which is Integral Calculus, and the other math course, Computer Programming 2, basically, and that would have been in the language of C, which is very good. Waterloo chooses that one on purpose as a way to set you up for every possible programming job you could get or further courses in the university. It's very, very useful to learn C so that you can learn the common data structures and algorithms and stuff later on when you take those particular courses for that. And then there would have been some other stuff as well. I'm going to stop getting super, super specific into courses. But basically, yeah, that's first year. And at that point, it would have been done fall term from the first set of 5 courses, done the winter term for the set of 5 courses, and this would have been now about May or April-ish time. And so then, using the co-op program, I found a job at the government where I worked as, it was called an analyst. I think the actual job title was junior analyst I forget the exact term, but it's the Canadian government group where they basically analyze and make sure that food is safe to eat, and they do slightly more than that as well. There's actually a couple different departments that all do sorts of pieces of that, but not really going to get into that. Most of you probably aren't too interested in that. If you are, go ahead and read about it. Yeah, so I had a job as that. Essentially, I turned it into a very programming role by learning a custom programming language that allowed me to automate some things, which was really cool. I implemented some of the things that we learned in the computer science courses and made them actually useful. People were really impressed by what I did, and I learned a lot there. That was also located in Ottawa, which, if you're not familiar with Canadian geography, basically Waterloo is relatively close to Toronto, about like an hour, hour and a half-ish away drive. And then Ottawa, much northeast, is about 6 hours or so drive. And so it was very far away from my family and from other things that I knew. Of course, I can't really complain about the family distance. Most of my friends or a lot of the other people there, your family's like across the other side of the world, so really no complaints there. But either way, it did feel like it was a little bit further away from these people. But yeah, that was the full first year. Really interesting. Absolutely nothing to do with data science at all, really. I still played video games, which again eventually does lead into the data science stuff, but nothing too interesting. On my own time in Ottawa, I was actually trying to make some games. I dabbled in Unity, which uses C# to make 3D games, or 2D, but I was making 3D games. Never got too far into it, but it was pretty cool. So I would recommend any of you to pick up Unity or some other Unreal Engine would be the other big game development engine. If you are interested in that, it's really, really cool and not quite as hard as you might expect. So then leading into second year, basically second year I started off with would have been Calculus 3, which is multivariable calculus, which is literally like multivariable calculus using multiple variables. It then starts involving linear algebra, because linear algebra is basically the study of multiple variables doing various usually linear operations in with numbers and algebra, blah blah blah. That stuff is all awesome prerequisites for data science and machine learning, which just later on knowing this stuff really helped, at least feeling like I had a pretty good idea of matrices, vectors, why you might want them, and calculus behind that as well. So very useful. And then again, I'm not going to get too much into the courses because I'm just gonna forget because I started picking random things and there's a lot of different courses in there. But basically, second year I would have done multivariable calculus, some other programming courses, some other math courses, and this is where I eventually started to pick up data science. Somewhere in second year, can't remember, middle of second year, I started to want to learn about neural networks, basically. I don't know why exactly. It was partially because I really liked video games, I really liked artificial intelligence, and one of these terms that kept popping up was neural networks. They were, at the real peak of their boom interest at that point. And everyone was talking about them, but very few people that I was talking to actually understood them very well or really at all. And so I went on Coursera, took those machine learning courses. I took the not updated Andrew Ng machine learning course. By the way, if you're watching this, I'd strongly recommend Andrew Ng's new updated machine learning course in Python. That would be really awesome. I wish I had access to that at the time. Shortly after, I think Andrew Ng's deep learning course, deep learning specialization, came out in Python. I can't remember quite when that came out, but when I wanted to do it, it was there. Yeah, so deep learning in Python came slightly after. So yeah, anyways, back on topic. I took Andrew Ng's machine learning course, and where I did most of that. I skipped a few of the pieces, but learned most of it. I did Andrew Ng's deep learning neural networks course, which is where I really started to understand these things. I still wasn't feeling super duper strong in the technicals, but I put a lot of effort into understanding the mathematics behind it. And because I had already taken the courses like linear algebra, I would have already done linear algebra 1 and 2 at that point, and calculus, 3 calculus courses, and other various math courses to understand just reading math. It came a lot easier. And suddenly, like after being able to take these math courses, I felt like I could just kind of learn everything. And that's why I really strongly do recommend a math degree if you are not completely sure of what you are wanting to do, because it kind of allows you to learn anything. Pretty much every book, if you can read mathematics, then you can go and try and understand that book. And if it's not speaking in mathematics, well, then as long as you're good with the language, then you should hopefully be able to try and understand that too, as long as it's a good piece of material. Anyways, back on track again. I love tangents because I just talk about various things I feel important at the time. But yeah, so I started learning about neural networks. I felt like I had a really good grasp of the computer vision pieces, a decent grasp, although a little bit less on the recurrent neural networks and natural language processing pieces. And I started to do some projects, not really to impress employers, mostly because I wanted to. But I did a really cool computer vision project with a partner where we were basically making a fruit classifier app. It would have a database so that you could recognize the fruit, and when you did recognize the fruit, you would look it up and get its associated information so that maybe you or I could just quickly scan a fruit with our camera, and it would tell you various information like how to store it in the fridge, nutritional information, other cool facts and whatnot. So really cool stuff. After that, this would have been second, third year or so, and I felt like I was after studying and just looking at various research papers. I felt like I was getting pretty strong in this stuff. I also started to do the statistics-based courses, and so I was dabbling in. I would have taken statistics 1 and probability 1, probably probability first, and then statistics. So that's real fundamentals that the probability stuff isn't directly applicable, but the statistics stuff is definitely very applicable. And then after that, I would have taken regression, linear regression, which understanding that really helps. And this is where it's kind of funny because taking the machine learning course by Andrew Ng, that would have been the first stuff in any sort of data science or analytics that I've done. And then the deep learning after that. Generally, people learn, and I definitely recommend learning regression first, linear regression well, confidence intervals and all that stuff very well, before you learn the neural networks, because it would probably be a lot easier, but you certainly don't have to, as I personally didn't. So started taking some statistics courses, regression, neural networks, and deep learning, and started making some projects in computer vision. And then after that, or somewhere in the middle there, I did get my first internship as a data scientist, or I'm calling it data scientist. I think the actual role was something like developer in analytics, blah, blah, blah. It was basically a data scientist. I was treated as a data scientist, and my job at an insurance company was to make a machine learning model or two and do some analytics, just various analytics and analysis for, insurance-based stuff. And that was very fun. I got to apply some of this stuff in machine learning and deep learning to insurance, and that was really cool. A side note about insurance in particular, it may or may not be the best place to do deep learning because it is, at least in Canada and probably many other places, definitely the US, it is regulated or the AI side is regulated via the government. So you have to be a little bit careful when you're in there about the things that you do actually use artificial intelligence and automate, because, I don't know, not really going to get into the details, but there is a little bit of a complex situation there. Whereas opposed to other companies like a startup, you might just be, you can do whatever you want. If you have some awesome idea, you can go ahead and implement that. It's just a little bit different there. But I got an internship. Yeah, I got an internship as a data scientist, and that went really well. A little bit after, I ended up learning Spark in school. And so that was really awesome. I learned a lot about the theory of big data, MapReduce, and getting a lot of hands-on practice with that in PySpark. And that was tremendously useful. Also, a little bit before this, I also learned SQL on my own, actually. I learned SQL through a course. And so many of you might ask, how did I learn SQL on my own? Actually, I think I technically did Code Academy, which I don't personally recommend that much anymore because I don't think it's the best tool. I would probably recommend the University of California, the UC Davis course by Coursera before that. Although Code Academy is not bad, it's okay. But anyways, I had SQL. I learned Spark and PySpark, which was really, really beneficial. I know that many of you are coming to this channel from one of my PySpark videos because those are one of the top performing ones. So I'm really happy to hear that. I'm glad to see that many of you are learning Spark. It's a very useful tool. It helped me a lot, and it helps me get another internship where I worked at Loblaw, which Loblaw is basically the company that owns pretty much every food company in Canada. So even if you're here and you see like Fresh Co versus Zehrs versus like Value Mart, pretty much anything other than Walmart and I believe Sobeys, and then probably some smaller other ones. They're all owned by this one company, Loblaw, and yeah, so a very, very massive company. They're actually owned themselves by another company called like George Weston, and then I think they might even be owned by something. I can't quite remember. But anyways, it doesn't really matter. Massive company. I was hired as a machine learning engineer or deep learning engineer, where I'm not going to go too much into the details. You can see on my LinkedIn if you want to see a little bit more. But a really cool job. And then, after that, I was hired as a really cool, my favorite job for sure, which was a computer vision engineer at a healthcare startup. I'm pretty sure they would call themselves a startup. It was a very startup vibe. And yeah, I'm not going to talk too much about what I did there, but anything in healthcare, I would strongly recommend you get into if you feel passionate about it, because you can really make a real difference in the world. And there's a lot of space, a lot of open opportunity to attack there if you want to. It's so cool. I love it. So those are my internships. I actually skipped over one because I don't really want to talk about it too much. I was a programmer, C# programmer, not too special. So pretty awesome stuff. Somewhere in the middle there, I actually, around the Loblaw stage, which was maybe a year or so before I finished university, I guess I kind of jumped to where I had already finished university. But yeah, at the end of that internship with the healthcare company, it was shortly after I finished university, took a machine learning course or two, which I already knew most of the material of from the courses I said, and then I finished school. But about a year or so before I finished school, someone really encouraged me to make a YouTube channel on some of the stuff that I knew, like data science and statistics and machine learning, deep learning, all that stuff, because apparently I was a really good teacher, and so I also do have the technical skills, like using computer, using computer. I think everyone can use a computer, but programming and just using a wide variety of tools to kind of explain these things well, record it well, and I got the equipment like this nice microphone over here, which I'm not speaking into, so this should sound the same. What am I doing? Not sure. But yeah, and so I did start a YouTube channel, as you probably know, since you're watching this video on my YouTube channel. And I really did enjoy it. It makes me really happy to make videos for this. I will continue for the foreseeable future. I of course have no plans to stop making videos for this, and I'm really glad that you are listening to this right now, because it means you've been a big fan of, you've been a big support of me. I really appreciate all of those members of my channel. If you are one of them, thank you so much. Yeah, for getting 20 minutes into this video where I'm unscriptedly talking about something, talking about a story, it means you really care about me, and I guess I've brought some value into your life. I really hope that that is true. And that does kind of conclude this. So I hope that was interesting. I hope that you maybe learned a thing or two about me. Maybe not too much about anything super important for learning data science or machine learning. That wasn't the purpose of this. I hope it was a nice story. And yeah, I'll see you later, guys. Have a great week. It's Tuesday, and the stock market rallied a lot today. So if you are investing in the American companies, then you probably had a good day, unless it changed in the last 20 minutes or so. This is recorded at about 3:40, and so it maybe ever so slightly changed. Again, probably most of you don't really care. I love you so much if you're listening to this. I'll see you later, guys. Have a great week.